Welcome to this episode of Let's Be Civil. Today, Claude Goguen joins me on Let's Be Civil. Claude Goguen has more than 25 years' experience in the precast concrete and construction industry. He has been an operations manager at a precast plant and a project manager for many residential, industrial, and commercial projects. Currently, he is the Director of Outreach and Technical Education at the National Precast Concrete Association. He also serves on several ASTM and ACI committees. Welcome everybody to another edition of Let's Be Civil, the civil engineering podcast, and focus on the people side of civil engineering. And we try to leave the technical stuff behind, let other people to talk about technical things. And otherwise, even after 30 minutes, we'd be falling asleep on the technical side sometimes. So we have somebody with us today that's associated with a national organization, actually, National Precast Concrete Association, one of the many groups that supports the civil engineering profession and sort of the parts that surround the profession as well. So Claude's with us from NPCA, and you can see he's got his nice logo. That's one of the logos. It's a nice logo. And there's another organization called Precast Concrete Association, PCI, which you guys have kind of joined forces with in some respects here over the last couple of years. We'll touch base on that one a little bit, but let's start off just talking about what's it like working for a national technical and give the listeners viewers an understanding of like technical association versus a promotional group. Because there are different kinds of organizations like this, and so where does NPCA sort of fall in kind of I don't even know if it's a hierarchy, but a hodgepodge of different kinds of organizations that support the profession?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, John. I appreciate it. So the National Precast Concrete Association is a trade association. So we represent manufacturers of precast concrete and suppliers to the industry. So we do promotion for our members. We do marketing. We help them with their marketing, but we do a lot of technical assistance as well, where we have 5 engineers on staff, and we will help them from everything from interpreting codes and standard, ACI, ASTM, what have you, CSA, and just navigating maybe their own regulations or specifications, job site specific. It could be questions on mixed design, things like that. So we'll help them with that. And we also teach a lot of courses. We're very education focused. And education focused not just for leadership, for QA, QC managers, but for the people that work on the floors of these manufacturing facilities. So making them understand what it is that they do, why they're reinforcing where they're placing it, for example. Things like that. So sometimes we find ourselves teaching engineering principles to non-engineers, but they really catch on to it, and it helps them in performing their job. So we really enjoy doing that. A lot of education. And we've recently partnered with Precast Concrete Institute, like you mentioned. So we do a show with them every year, the Precast Show, which we were just in Fort Worth this past year. Mm-hmm. So we do that every year, and we also have an annual convention. So a lot of things that we do, but really it's all focused on the manufacturer and helping them be as good as they can be.
So what's your role in the organization?
So I'm the Director of Technical Education and Outreach. So in that role, I I do a lot of traveling, and I do a lot of teaching and presentations. And I enjoy it so much. It's not something, when I started with NPCA, it wasn't in my job title, or it wasn't in my in my description per se, but it just kind of evolved into that, and I love it. So what I do is it's twofold. So I teach a lot to our members, like I said, to the people who work on the floors, to the QA/QC folks. But I also go out to a lot of universities. I was at Texas State just this past March, right after show. I've been to a lot of schools across this country, across North America, which is a great experience. Just meeting the students, meeting the faculty, these campuses, that's been great. So just teaching, talking to students, civil engineering students, architectural students, construction management students, just talking to them about precast in general. And usually the professor has a specific topic they'd like me to address, whether it's resiliency, whether it's design or other things. So it could be sophomores, it could be graduate classes, but we've been doing a lot of that. So that's the part of what I do. Also going to a lot of conferences and presenting there. So we have a lot of wastewater conferences that we present at, because a lot of our members make structures for the wastewater industry. So yeah, that's in a roundabout way what I do.
So what's your academic background?
So I'm a civil engineer. I have a civil engineering degree, and that's it. I didn't get my master's or anything. I got a civil engineering degree at the University of Moncton. Go Matadors. No. Actually, it's Blue Eagles. Blue Eagles. That was my high school, Matadors. Blue Eagles. And that's in Moncton, is in New Brunswick, Canada. So I got my engineering degree there.
Okay. So did you, the reason I asked that is you're now in a position where you're going to universities and interacting with students. And so you obviously came from that side of being a student. When you were a student, did people come to speak? Did you have many guest lecturers when you were a student?
I honestly, and that's the first time anybody's ever asked me that, John. Honestly, I don't remember ever having one speaker come to one of our classes.
I think I would concur, for me, just in, thinking back to mine, is that, the very rare, if ever, I couldn't name anybody for sure.
Right, right.
And so you're doing something that so I'm sort of trying to connect some dots here. So now you're doing something, you're going back, basically in some ways, like giving back to the academic world, from your experiences, and you could see on your face, and in your voice, how much you enjoy doing that. So so what is it that it just makes that so much fun for you to make these trips? Because a lot of people would go, oh man, students, college, do you really, and you're doing this, several times a year. So there's got to be something there that you really like.
Yeah, because we also go to architectural firms, engineering firms, and not a knock to them, but there's something about the energy and the audience of presenting to a group of students, and that just makes it a little more satisfying. And maybe it's just like you said, John. I don't remember ever anybody coming to our school and presenting. So my experience when I went through my program is everything was so abstract. There was rarely any real world examples, other than going out and doing some surveying. Everything was just so abstract. When you took dynamics and statics and you took materials, it was, it was in this pretend world. And then we graduated, and it's like you walked up from behind a curtain. And suddenly it was like, whoa, look at all this. I mean, and you had to acclimate yourself. And so when I go into a school, I feel like I bring to them, not that they're going through what I'm going through, but I feel like I bring a little of that behind the curtain to them, where I come in and I'm able to talk about, this is what we do. Right. This is what goes on in here. This is what goes on in manufacturing. Because even, as an engineer, as a designer, or as a construction manager, you're dealing with materials, you're dealing with partners who are bringing materials to the site to help you, whether it's heavy civil or above ground or whatever. And just having that glimpse for a moment even of what goes on in that particular making of that material is something that I wish I would have had.
Yeah.
With that kind of feeling in mind. And also, I guess the thing is that, and anybody that sits in one of my presentations mostly, hopefully will tell you, is that I'm very passionate because I love what I do. I love concrete. I love precast concrete. And I just love what I do. And I think it comes across that way. Sometimes on my feedback sheets, the student or somebody will write, "Oh, it was a little salesy." And, and I never mean to be salesy. I'm just passionate,
Right.
But I'm passionate about engineering overall, civil engineering, whatever material anybody uses. I just love talking to students. I love interacting with them and just bringing them a glimpse of what's coming up.
Yep. It's interesting that you commented about, that you were living in this abstract world, and it wasn't until the end and you actually start to go to work that your eyes begin to be open. I had someone else say that same kind of thing to me, and this was early on in the development of our program, which really had an impact on how we developed our program. They said that when they were going to school, they would take a class and they'd learn that content, and exams and homework, and it'd be done.
Right.
There was no connection of one class to the next other than prerequisite stuff.
Right.
And so their comment to me was, when they graduated, they didn't see how things went together. They didn't understand how this was, all of this stuff wasn't just these little independent modules of courses, that it was, that all really went together. And just as you said, in just a little different way, that it wasn't until they graduated that they went, oh, so I hope that things are changing in that respect, that we're helping the students that see the broad picture and things are connected.
Right.
That when in a way that it hasn't been before. So.
Yeah, I definitely think, the students are much more exposed to that. But you can take such simple, when I teach just basic engineering principles to non-engineers, it's just taking everyday things like a swimming pool and saying, now imagine, if you will, a swimming pool. Imagine that it's empty and you have the soil pushing in on one side and you have nothing on the other, or when it's full, or, and you relate it to an everyday thing that's not so abstract. And so every time they'll see a swimming pool, they'll think of, the time that we pressures and live loads and dead loads. And so I think professors are doing a much better job of that than maybe what they were doing in my.
Yep. Well, and I hope that this forum is an opportunity to add to the, taking away the curtain or pulling it open a little bit. That people see past the graduation date and what their lives might be like, going on. So, tell us a little bit about your career path. So you graduate in Canada. You're sitting in in Indiana, outside of Indianapolis right now. So are you Canadian?
I'm still a Canadian citizen. I'm actually looking to get my American citizenship very soon, but I do have a green card.
Okay.
So it started off as I wanted to be a pilot, actually, and I got my pilot's license before I got my driver's license at 16, and then decided I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer, and then I went to school to take mechanical engineering to go down that path, and ended up taking turbodynamics and a couple of other things, and realized that no, mechanical is not exactly my particular brand of vodka, if you will. Right. So I decided to go off into civil. And so that's how I ended up in civil engineering. But and then in Canada in the mid '90s, there was no work. There was nothing going on while the U.S. was booming at that time. So I moved down here in the mid '90s and started working for a precaster. So when you come out as a civil engineer, you have, especially working behind a curtain, like I said, you have this vision of, all right, so when I'm done, I'm going to go work in an office in a cubicle. or, you know, in some sort of office, and I'm going to do design, and I'm going to look at plans, I'm going to stamp, and then I'm going to look at the next project. But it was anything but that. You know, when I came out of university, I wanted to be open to other opportunities, because I remember this one thing when I was in when I was working during the summers for the city. I used to inspect for the city. I used to inspect, you know, like municipal jobs where they would replace a manhole or do some asphalt. And so here I am, a young kid, bright white hard hat, you know, clean boots, and the guys would really, you know,
They weren't very kind, right?
oh yeah, oh yeah. And, you know, I'd hear them a lot talking about the engineers, and it usually wasn't in glowing, you know, comments. Oh, those engineers, they don't know what they're talking about. Talking about my bosses, they don't know what they're talking about. They've never been to a job site. Everything looks good on paper until it gets, you know, you've heard these things.
Yeah, yeah.
And so here I am, I'm in the middle of, you know, studying to be what they're making fun of. And I thought, how can I be different, you know, than that? That really stayed with me. And I was open to doing other things first, thinking that eventually I will end up in that office or that cubicle doing design, but I wanted to not be accused of that. I wanted to be able to say, no, sir, I did work for 5 years in the field, or I did this or I did that. So having that openness when I went out to look for work, I did find a work with a precaster in Columbus, Indiana. And I ended up staying there for 10 years. And I never stamped a drawing, but I did a lot. I applied my education, and I got my PE in Canada. I had my PE in Canada. And so I kept that up. But at the same time, and I used in things that I'd learned, but what I was doing was I was managing the plant. I was managing logistics. I was also doing takeoffs. I was doing takeoffs from plans and putting them, having the guys in the plant build, and I'd solve problems with them. I was actually managing the guys in the plant, which was a union plant. So all these things all this experience I gained was amazing, even though I never stamped a drawing.
Right.
So there were times that I almost felt like this guilt, like, wait a second, I'm an engineer, but I'm not doing engineer stuff. But I didn't realize at the time that what I was doing was building this foundation, you know, for what I was going to be doing later on. So that's how I ended up here. Sorry, long answer.
No, it actually was an excellent answer, because one of the things that I hope for in talking with the range of people that I do is the different experiences. So to comment on that experience with those guys making those kind of remarks, which, you know, the fact of the matter is, for anybody that wants to be in our profession, that's not an uncommon thing. The workforce, the labor force, particularly like what you said earlier, if they haven't been educated to why we do the things we do in design, which you clearly, you know, make an effort to do. You know, I would not make fun of them, but I would, like you said, kind of, you know, say back to them, but you guys don't really understand what the designer does, you know. So it kind of works both ways here, guys.
I know.
But it does have an impact on you, because, you know, that does occur. We shouldn't sugarcoat these sorts of things and try to suggest that, you know, there aren't these kind of things that happen out in the field. There are people that will feel that someone else that's contributing to the process doesn't understand or doesn't know what they're doing. Right.
That's always going to happen. Yep.
And so, and you know, you're saying to yourself, I don't want to be that person. I want people to respect me and my background and my knowledge base. That's excellent. That's just beautiful, you know, insight for people that are looking to, you know, be in this profession. So you come down and you have that job for, you said, about 10 years. What did you do then after that? What was your next step?
Well, so then I moved off into, I had an opportunity to go do some work for a general contractor, owner's rep here in Indianapolis. And so I did that for a while, still in the capacity of in the field, which I was, you know, at that point I was ready to, okay, I want to get more into doing design perhaps. But what this offered was an opportunity to get another perspective. And this was just general. What I was doing was precast, so that was underground, mostly underground stuff. This was an opportunity to work on large commercial residential buildings from the ground up. So doing, the pilings, the foundations, the walls, everything. So that, so I did that for a few years. So I started as an assistant field superintendent. Then I became a project superintendent, then a project manager.
So still outside work. You're not really in the cubicle that you envisioned yourself being in.
Exactly. In a job trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a job trailer. And so, but there again, I was working with cast in place concrete now. I was working with steel design, steel beams. I wasn't designing, but I was reading the plans. I was looking, I was understanding, a little more than somebody else may understand. And so, and then still building, learning so much from these guys in the field that have been superintendents for 40, 50, 60 years, learning from them. And being on a large project like that, from the first excavator bucket to the last cabinet knob, there's just something in that I wish, everybody could, because then every time you drive by that building, you're like, I was part of that.
Right.
So that was very fulfilling. So I did that for, about another 10 years or so. I did that and on a lot of different projects. And then that's when the National Precast Concrete Association came calling. So I really only had kind of three main jobs in my career. And the Precast Concrete Association came calling, and working in precast and working out on the site were tough. Those are tough jobs because, there were times that I thought, boy, if I had a solar powered car, I'd never get anywhere, because I'd drive to work in the dark and I'd go in the dark. It was just long hours, for anybody that's working there. So I was ready for something a little more office, a little more. And then the Precast Concrete Association called me, actually a recruiter on their behalf. And I decided to go in for an interview. And I was just instantly, I was attracted to trying that on. Just being, at that time, they just wanted me to be part of their technical team. And so I gave it a try, and I've been there now for almost 12 years, and loved it. I've always I've enjoyed it so much, because you're working. We have a leadership team in the office. We have a president, but we're working for 1,100 bosses. We have 1,100 members that we're helping out every day. So it's a little different than working in a firm or something like that, where you are working for a client, you're working for your boss. But in this job, I never know what's going to happen. Like today, I could get a call from a precaster in Arkansas that really needs help with this specific thing. And when you help them, there's a sense of, obviously, satisfaction in doing that. And then the next thing you know, you're dealing with a DOT, Florida DOT guy on a bridge project. And then, so it's a very unpredictable job, and it makes it, pretty exciting, pretty fun to do. So
you've had two job changes and very different in the way the job changes came about. So your first job change, what motivated that? Were you just looking to do something different? Did you, how did that process go for you?
Yeah, I think I was getting to a point where, it wasn't any, there wasn't any hard feelings or anything where I was working. I just needed to do something different. It got to where, first of all, it was very, very, it was a job that, it was everything. It was my everything. I couldn't, I did everything. Like I said, I was managing plant shipping and QA QC. So, and
a little overwhelming after a while.
Right. And I'm in my early 30s, and I'm like, there's got to be, there's got to be something else. And so once in a while, and I started making contacts in the industry, and just hearing about, just making those contacts and networking, which is so important, whether it's through, the local chamber of commerce or joining an ACI group or things like that. So I just got to have my name out there, and I think a recruiter came and found me both times. It was
okay.
For the general contractor. and yeah, I just decided to give it a try. So,
Well,
and
talk a little bit about the, being recruited, because that's actually another thing that's new for us on the podcast is if anybody's been recruited, no one has said so
oh,
to date. And
right.
why don't you speak a little bit about what that process was like? I mean, so you get a phone call or an email out of the blue. I mean, because you're not expecting this kind of thing. So how did it go? And what was kind of going through your mind as you went through the process?
Well, I remember more the last recruitment to NPCA, so
Sure.
I'll speak to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was contacted. I answered the phone and I thought, how did this guy get my number? It's not. I don't even remember having my resume out or anything like that.
Okay.
So he found my name from somebody else, or somebody else had suggested me. So yeah, it was. So at first, you're a little leery, like, okay, who is this guy? So first, I had to establish a bit of level of trust with this company. Look them up, and okay, they're legitimate. And so I had a few conversations with him. It wasn't like a done deal right away. Like, we spoke, and then I said, okay, I'll think about it, and we'll talk again. And then we spoke a few more times, and we just established this good rapport. And finally, he didn't come to me. I don't remember if he came to me specifically with the NPCA job. He just contacted me because he had a few opportunities that he thought maybe I'd be a fit for. And then maybe the NPCA one came up shortly thereafter. But yeah, it was just, it was a good way of doing it. It was it was a little strange because I couldn't talk to the employer, to the NPCA, until I had to keep this relationship between the
recruiter.
The recruiter, yeah. I had to keep I had to speak to the recruiter, and the recruiter would speak to NPCA and all this, and and then finally, we had an interview. So it was strange going into an interview with somebody that you hadn't been having a conversation with leading up to it. So it kind of added a little bit to the nervousness, but no, overall it was very seamless. To me, it didn't cost me anything. Obviously the NPCA had to pay for the recruitment and everything, but to me, it almost helped facilitate the whole process. I was working through this person. It was like suddenly I had an agent. I felt like, oh,
right. You're a rock star.
You'll have to talk to my agent.
Right.
And, so yeah, no, I certainly would be open to it. I certainly say if a recruiter, and there's lots of recruiters out there, and if a recruiter contacts you, to be open to it. But obviously with just doing a little research into the company, which you can do nowadays, check and see, and maybe speak to somebody else who's worked with them. But yeah.
So your first employment, though, you went after that job. That was an opening that you applied for, and kind of more traditional, process. And then the other two were somebody came looking for you. So
yeah, well, even now that I think I've had it pretty easy when it comes to job searching. It's funny the way it worked for Indiana, because a lot of people will ask me, why Indiana? Right. It's funny, like Indiana people will say that, why Indiana? Like, why would you ever come here? But it's a beautiful place, by the way. But it's a friend of mine who had graduated the same time I did. He could not find work either. We were both, all of our class was having a hard time finding work in Canada. And he came to a wedding of a friend of ours in Terre Haute, Indiana. He got married to a girl from Terre Haute. I couldn't make the wedding, but he came. And while he was here, he dropped off a few resumes for your album here. And I mean, it blew up. Like, he got a job right away. And so he moved over here. And after about a year, he said, Claude, you gotta come over here. They're just hiring like crazy. And so he gave me a recommendation of a precaster that he had been working with.
Right.
So in a sense, he was my recruiter. So I flew down here. Never, I knew about Larry Bird, and I knew about, but I flew down here. He interviewed me during the day. It was like a full day interview. And that night he slipped me over an Applebee's little, cocktail napkin. And on it was written, my salary. And it was so, and I still carry around that cocktail napkin. It's pretty, it's hard to read, but yeah, that's how it all started.
So are you willing to divulge what your what your original salary was when you started as a new engineer or new?
I started at 27,500 in
And this was
1990. Let's see, that was 1993, 94. Yeah, it wasn't very much. I was hoping to start a little higher, but I've never been somebody that's been overconfident. So I just thought, whatever somebody starts me at, I know I'll get, and my salary went way higher than that. But once I started, I thought I just got to get in the door. And I know I have a strong enough work ethic that once I'm in there, I'll be in there and I'll work. So I saw that and I thought to myself, you know what? I've got a job. It's in the United States. That's pretty cool. I didn't know much about Indiana. It was a new experience. I didn't have much holding me back home. I had family. So I jumped in.
Yeah. Well, amazingly, we've been talking for 30 minutes.
Geez.
Yeah. So this has really been great. I do want to ask you before we go, if there's because just about everybody that I speak with, there's a reason to have another conversation with them. You talked a lot about being at plants and that sort of thing. Another kind of element that I'm interested in pursuing through this platform is to actually be able to go on some job sites, and have people see things, because it's from a faculty member's perspective, I can't take 35 kids out to some job sites and have them see things, or even a larger group than that.
Sure.
And so I'm interested in if people would like get a helmet cam, or if they have one, or a body cam or something, and and we walk out on basically a job site with you, and you show us around a little bit of what a plant's like, or something like that. So you think that's a possibility that we might be able to talk about when things get a little bit back to normal, and actually maybe in some respects it might be better to go out there when there's not such a crowd, right? Before it gets crowded.
Absolutely. It would be yeah, I could see us doing that.
I think that'd be very cool. All right.
We have a GoPro camera at work, and it would just be a matter of finding a plant or a job site, obviously.
Right.
Doing that.
Right. Yeah. Outstanding. Well, this has been great. You've touched on some things that no one else has touched on for
I feel bad now. I feel like I've just been running at the mouth and I ate up your whole 30 minutes.
No, this is what this is all about. It was great. Like I told you offline.
Yeah.
This is what makes this fun for me, is just hearing the stories and relating them, actually not necessarily to me, but to friends of mine who I'm going, I remember, Joe, Bob, Ann, whoever it might have been, had, some kind of an experience like that too. And so, I'm sitting here going, yep, I remember somebody telling me, and then there are, my own. So I want to thank you for being part of our Let's Be Civil family now, that you're part of the fold. And we'll be in touch. We'll see what we can do to actually get out and see what some of this stuff is like in the ground and not, above ground and all that. So
absolutely, I'm glad to help. And if you're looking for other nominees for your podcast as well, I'm happy to help.
Just let people know, and let's do a little email connection, and I'll talk with them. So. Outstanding, sir. Appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, John. Stay safe.
See you. Yep, you too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.